Welcome to another episode of The Brand Called You, a podcast and podcast show that brings you leadership lessons, knowledge, experience, and wisdom from thousands of successful individuals from around the world. I'm your host, Ashutosh Garg, and today I'm privileged to welcome a very, very accomplished professional from the US, Jaclynn Brennan. Jaclynn, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much, Ash. I'm excited to be here.
Thank you. Jaclynn is the Chief Executive Officer of Fyli, which is an organization that is supporting early stage female founders. She's a creative executive and an expert on the connection between business and branding, and she's passionate about the advancement of women. So, Jaclynn, before we get into talking about Fyli, tell me about your own amazing journey in brief.
Oh, thank you, Ash. So I started my career working in fashion as a corporate creative director. I started in fine jewelry. I had the opportunity to work for some amazing brands. I got to design Serena Williams' first jewelry collection in collaboration with a Profits for Purpose brand. I then moved into women's ready-to-wear and even dabbled into film as an executive producer of a documentary series that really connected artisans to consumers to highlight their journey of creating collections and doing beadwork, Ada in India. So I do have this really interesting connection to India. After working in fashion corporate, I pivoted to become an entrepreneur and I started a tech company. It was a SaaS B2B software. I had a really challenging time in that pivot coming from fashion corporate into entrepreneurship in a space that I knew nothing about in tech. So I had to learn vesting schedules, raising capital on a safer convertible note, all of these different notions of being an entrepreneur that you don't learn unless you do. And that challenge led me to start Fyli because it was something that I personally needed in my journey.
Wow. So let's talk about Fyli. Tell me a little bit about the venture and how are you supporting early stage female founders?
So first, Fyli stands for tribe in Greek and family in Latin, and we are considered a mastermind community. That term mastermind was coined in 1925 by Napoleon Hill, and I'm sure you know because you are a member of a YPO organization. So Fyli is a NAS business, network as a service, and we provide education, resources, accountability, peer-to-peer mentorship, and funding opportunities for these early stage founders. We launched initially as a passion project because it was something we needed. I needed personally. It started at Soho House, which is a creative club for individuals, consultants, anyone in the creative field. And I'd work there every day. I started gathering women. We started sharing resources and ideas. We started hosting events. And then when the world shut down in 2020 because of COVID, we fostered our online community. We gave over 150 free master classes. That's how we built our network. And we launched a model of cohorts. You have to apply, you're vetted 8 to 10 women per cohort. They grow and scale together over a year. We bring in amazing leaders, experts that lead these classes, these sessions. We co-created our curriculum with our members, and we watch and guide them through a year of personal and professional development.
How amazing. And based on your experience, Jaclynn, what are some of the challenges a lot of the women female founders face?
Absolutely. The number one challenge female founders are facing are funding, which we all know the statistics, 2.5% of venture capital are going to women in the US, less than 1% to women of color. But I always say we can't let those statistics hold us down because there's other data. There's data that shows women exit startups 1 year faster, they triple revenue and income, and they grow companies as of right now over 144%. So we are seeing both sides of the spectrum, but capital is number one. Number two, it's helping women conquer imposter syndrome and learn how to make educated and informed asks. We have to encourage and teach women.
And tell me a little bit more about when you say helps them to capture or control the imposter syndrome. I'd like to understand a little more.
Sure. So imposter syndrome is that feeling that we're not enough, that feeling that we can't do that thing, that we're holding ourselves back, right? And we teach women in Fyli how to gain and garner that confidence and how to build a community of accountability surrounding them. So every time the negative self-talk hits, those doubtful thoughts, they have the ability to flip the script and say, no, I can do this. And I might not have all of the information, but I'm going to learn it. I'm going to get there. And if I fail, I'm going to fail fast, because I truly believe that failure is necessary to cultivate resilience. We have to go through failures. That's how we learn. That's how we grow. And as entrepreneurs, we fail all the time. We fail, we pivot, we make hard decisions, we get better, and we keep going.
Correct. Well said. And when you talk about one of the biggest challenge being funding, how does Feely support a lot of these women entrepreneurs? Do you fund yourself, or do you make investments, or do you just matchmake?
We matchmake. I would definitely say that's a matchmaking process. But before we even get to that point of introductions, we help women understand, do they even need to raise capital? Can they bootstrap? What kind of capital could they raise? Is it debt equity? Are they raising a friends and family or a pre-seed round? We help them think about their 18-month plan, their milestones, how they would map out that capital. We help them get prepared with the deck, with pitching, with making them feel confident. And then we're able to help share resources of which funds might be a fit for them based on their thesis, who they should speak with, and then guide them out there.
Interesting. And if it's not confidential, are there any stars who have already made it big out of all the support Feely has given?
There's definitely quite a few.
Okay.
I'd like to shout out one of our members, Katie Fink. When she joined Feely, she was sitting in a C-suite position for a large e-com retailer. And throughout her journey, she was able to launch her own e-com platform called Mind Body Soul Market. And she is absolutely thriving. After experiencing corporate burnout and seeing what she's been able to overcome, we have another member, one of our founding members, who when she started was working at a biotech company. Recently, she raised $4 million. She's a woman of color, and she's built an amazing integrative farming business that focuses on cacao and a chocolate CPG brand.
Amazing. And when you say that Feely is a network as a service, a NAS brand, do you focus primarily on technology-led projects, or is it everything?
I'm so glad that you asked this question, because we are industry agnostic. We have tech, marketing, finance, CPG, fashion. We also have creative consultants. We have artists. So you don't have to be a potential venture-backed company or a tech company to join Feely, as long as you are an early stage founder building and scaling your business.
Oh, wonderful. Let me now move to brands. That's the other area that you are very passionate about. When you talk of creative duality, and this is a term you coined, how are you exploring new frontiers of branding?
Yes. So I have been in the branding industry for over 10 years. I used to brand products, fashion, things that would go to market. I now brand individuals. So I work with CEOs, athletes, celebrities to help them develop their personal identity outside of just what they do for work. We put so much of our identity into our titles and our companies, but we ourselves are brands. So I help individuals think about how they want others to perceive them, what their voice and tone is, how we cultivate that and translate it into digital strategies. So I've been building successful brands for individuals now for the past 6 years alongside of running Feely, and it's something I'm extremely passionate about. When you get to help someone define their voice and how they want to show up in the world, it's wonderful to see it come to life.
Fascinating. And I'm so fascinated with what you've just said, because my show, The Brand Called You, is actually from a book that I wrote on personal branding 7 or 8 years ago.
Wow.
The book is The Brand Called You. So that's how the show also gets its term. But I'm going to therefore delve a little deeper in personal branding. But now tell me, Jaclynn, what goes into building a successful personal brand?
So First of all, it's helping someone define who they are, what are their core values, what's most important to them, what kind of legacy do they want to make, and how
Correct.
they want to show up.
Correct.
That's the first piece of it. When I think about building a personal brand, I kind of break it down into three pillars.
Mm,
Number one is really doing that deep work, who
mm,
you are, what are your values, creating that roadmap. The second piece of it is all of the aesthetic branding. So, how we're going to show up, the presentations, the look and feel, creating the media kits,
mm,
developing all the assets to help you go out into the world. And then the third pillar of it is the digital piece.
mm,
What platforms are you going to speak to your potential customers or followers on, how you're going to connect with them, how you're going to engage, and then that digital kind of currency. So
mm,
that's how I think about it in three
mm,
different steps.
mm. And at what stage of one's life or one's career should one start thinking of building one's personal brand?
I believe you should start thinking about building your personal brand as college, right? Now in your when you're in college, you are exposed to social media.
Mhm,
Thank goodness I did not have social media when I was in college except Facebook. That's when
mhm,
Facebook came out. But we have to think about it early because every single thing you're putting on the internet, you're putting yourself out there. A potential employer can see that.
mm,
So it's wonderful to start early and to really think about how is my voice going to show up? How am I going to translate my talents, my capabilities
mm.
out there in the market? And I believe you should start thinking about it early.
Interesting. You also spoke about social media, and a question that is often asked is how does an individual decide which is the most appropriate social media to build their personal brand?
I believe that the individual first has to think about who do I want to speak to? If I want to speak to Gen Z, I know I need to be on TikTok.
Correct.
If I want to speak to millennials and I want to connect, I know I need to be on Instagram and I love photos and videos. If I want to speak to and cultivate a highly professional targeted network, I know I need to be on LinkedIn.
Mm.
If I love video content and that's my passion, then I know I need to be on YouTube. So it really depends who you want to speak to and what kind of content you want to build.
Wow, fantastic answer. Thank you. My next question is that is a behavioral change a precursor to building one's personal brand?
That's an interesting question, is a behavioral change. I believe that your brand should be authentic. It
Mm,
should fully represent who you are. So if you are changing,
mm,
creating a behavioral change to build your brand, I don't necessarily think it's going to stay true to your core. I do believe that we're always changing, we're always evolving, we're creating new neural pathways when we're learning, right?
mm,
But I do believe it's important to focus on your true authentic self and
mm.
to highlight the best parts of that so that you can shine and show up in a really, in a way that people are going to connect with you on a deeper level. And you shouldn't have to change the core of who you are.
Very interesting. The other question that is often asked from me, and I'm going to ask you, is that is becoming a thought leader becoming a personal brand?
Yes, becoming a thought leader is absolutely becoming a personal brand.
Mhm.
People are looking at you for words of encouragement, for inspiration, for support. And when you're putting your voice out there, you have to be consistent, you have to show up, and you have to walk the talk because people will call you out on it.
Correct.
If I'm out here preaching to you,
Yeah.
you have to build your brand, you have to be authentic, you have to put out consistent content. And I'm not doing it myself, then I'm not staying true to
Mm,
being a true thought leader.
mm.
So I do think that if you are putting your voice out there, you are creating and cultivating your brand. You're connecting with people on a deeper level.
Well said. The other question that I wanted to ask you is that, most of us who have worked in professional companies or large corporates seem to forget that a lot of our identity comes because of the name of the company that gets attached to our name. How does one tackle the conflict that may be there with the name of the company on our visiting card and our own name?
That's such a great question, Ash, because it's something that I see over and over again, not only with corporate, CEOs or C-suite executives, but also with founders. So when you're getting ready to leave that job, or your company is going to sell, you're going to exit, or simply you have to shut it down, it fails, and you have to pivot, we put so much of our identity of who we are on this title or on this company that we're working for, but we're so much more than that. And we have to think about, who am I as an individual? Why am I here in this world? I have unique gifts and I have talents. So that's why it's important when we're thinking about our personal brand. We're more than just where we work and what our title is. We have to think about, how do we fully express ourselves as individuals? What are all the things we bring to the table? And those are the pieces that we use to build a brand. That's how we talk to people. That's how we translate that information. It's more than just that title.
Fascinating. And what is the process you follow if I was to come to you and say, Jaclynn, help me build my personal brand?
Yes. So I would first ask you a series of questions, literally over 100 questions, to do a deep dive. Who you are, what your childhood was like, what you think your failures were, who your mentors were, what's most important for you. I'd ask you questions that your family and friends would have to answer for you. So how people perceive you. And it's deep work. And when people think about building a personal brand, the first things they think about is a logo or a color palette, or what fonts am I going to use on Canva? And that's the least important part about building a brand. It is really getting clear on who you are as an individual. And it's hard to do for yourself. This is why people seek out branding experts. Sometimes you need an outside perspective of someone that's going to pose these questions and help pull them out of you. So we do this deep work. And most of my clients say, this is really hard. I never thought about this for myself. Like, yes, I know. This is why I'm here. So we go through all of these questions. And then the next piece of it is the voice and tone, which is the most important part about building the brand. How are we going to create this voice? How are we going to speak to other people? What's the language we use? What's the tone we use? What are the phrases that come to mind? Then we put together different strategies. We recreate bios. We create bios for corporate boards, for executives and CEOs, for social media. We do all of the language. Then we go into the aesthetics, which I am a designer by trade. So I do really enjoy that piece of it. We think about, what is the visual representation of who this individual is? And then we get to the digital strategy. We do content builds from 30 to 90 days and ongoing. We do heaps of contents, photo shoots, videos, and all of the writing and captions. And then we execute on the digital strategy.
Wonderful. And you just spoke about designer, and I was trying to decide how to get my next cue for my next question, which you've given me. As a designer, right at the beginning of the conversation, you'd mentioned you did work on the jewelry collection of Serena Williams. What was it like to work with a celebrity? And what was it like to build a range of products for her?
So at the time, I was working as a creative director for a wonderful brand where we would donate our net profits back to girls' education. I got to work with a fantastic team and design team, and got to lead them in making sure that the brand was in the right position, in the right price point, and had the right feel. And getting to work with someone who is so strong, so determined, has such a clear vision on what she wants, was absolutely incredible. And she also had a fantastic creative team. I'm still very close friends with her creative director. So it was a matter of us coming together and saying, how do we take her ideas and vision? And then how do we market it where it's beautiful, sexy, affordable for mass consumer market, and merge those two. So a lot of times when people think of designers, they think of, someone sketching and drawing and coming up with these fantastic ideas and then just creating it. There is really a science to it, especially when you're designing for mass market customers. There's business behind it. There's numbers that you have to meet. There's goals. So it's also thinking about that business piece of it. But it was fantastic to work with her, to meet her. She's wonderful.
I can imagine. Thank you. I have time for two more questions, Jaclynn. You spoke also about a documentary that you were, that you produced. Tell me a little bit about the documentary.
So the documentary was also with this company that I was sitting creative director for. And I never worked in film before in my life. So this was a really unique experience. Our CEO is very passionate about highlighting women in India who do Ada beadwork for couture gowns like All Saints, Ralph Lauren, Dolce & Gabbana. And we got this fantastic experience of going to India, going 5 hours east of Delhi to Bareilly to meet these women, to watch them do this work and to tell their stories. This was part of a documentary series, a larger series called Connecting Thread, which lived on Refinery 29. It came out in 2018. So it was so exciting and cool to have that experience and to learn about film and to learn about the process of producing and how much goes into it. It's definitely not an easy feat. And I'm really grateful that I had that opportunity.
Amazing. And my last question to you, Jaclynn, and I'm so amazed at the diversity of work that you've been doing. So based on your own journey, from a creative director to a film producer to supporting early stage founders through Fyli, through becoming a personal branding guru, what would you say are 3 lessons you would want our viewers and listeners to take away from your own learnings and from our conversation?
Yes, it's a great question. So number 1, don't be afraid to make asks. This is something that I learned early on as an entrepreneur. You are always going to be asking for things, asking people for money, to invest in you, to believe in you, asking your customers to buy things, asking people to support you. Don't be afraid to ask, because the worst that can happen is someone's going to say no. And then you're going to keep going and you're going to ask again. So make your asks. Number 2, enjoy your journey. This is something that I learned later on. As an entrepreneur, you're always climbing a mountain, right? And then you get to the top and you're looking at the next mountain, and then you go right onto the climb, and it's like this hamster wheel hustle. Correct. You're never going to be satisfied because you're going to keep climbing. And if you don't stop and enjoy the journey along the way, one day you're going to wake up and say, well, hey, what was this for? It's the whole piece of it, the whole process of it. So being really present and celebrating those little wins and milestones, super important. And the third one is find your tribe. Find your tribe, the people that are going to support you, that are going to refill your cup, your mentors, your advisors. I wish I started an advisory board much sooner into my business. And I just didn't know how to set it up, how to structure it, what it looked like. And having those people in your corner is absolutely pivotal for your success.
Well said. And on that note, Jaclynn, and your 3 amazing lessons: don't be afraid to ask, enjoy your journey, and third, find your tribe. Basically, what you're telling everyone is to find people who are in your corner and who will support you. Thank you so much for talking to me about your incredible journey as a designer, as a creative director. Thank you for talking to me about the documentary. Thank you for talking to me about Fyli. I mean, the kind of work you're obviously doing for so many female founders, I'm sure is benefiting hundreds of them. And I look forward to applauding your success. And finally, thank you for talking to me about personal branding. Thank you again and good luck.
Thank you so much, Ash. Appreciate you.
Thank you. Thank you for listening to the Brand Called You videocast and podcast, a platform that brings you knowledge, experience, and wisdom of hundreds of successful individuals from around the world. Do visit our website www.tbcy.in to watch and listen to the stories of many more individuals. You can also follow us on YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. Just search for The Brand Called You.